Well, thank you. So just because this is about personal branding, I'm going to sell myself for a little bit here. My company is called Visible.me. Before April this year, we were called Names.com, Naymz. We're like LinkedIn, pretty similar. If you guys have a presence on LinkedIn, we're a professional social networking site. But we have some tools and some utilities that are built around personal branding and getting your name particularly out there in the search engines. We currently have 1.5 million active members, and we get about 500,000 people to visit our website every month. A little bit more about me. I've been in the internet space since 1999. I've worked with or for companies such as Microsoft, Accenture, Kraft, helping them build websites and build online marketing campaigns. Previous to starting my own business, I was here in Chicago at Orbitz, managing their search engine marketing initiatives. And I've been fortunate enough to appear in a lot of interviews and articles related to personal branding and online reputation in NPR, Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, and a bunch of other cool publications. So what the heck is personal branding, which I'll talk a lot about today? There's a lot of definitions out. It's sort of a new thought, sort of a new term. And this guy, Dan Schwabel, who's like a guru of personal branding, he wrote a book last year called Me 2.0, which is I highly recommend if you guys want to dig deeper into what online personal branding is all about. But he describes it as personal branding is about unearthing what is true and unique about you and letting everybody know about it. Pretty simple, straightforward, but it's defining who you are and broadcasting it to as many people as you can. Why is personal branding important? Well, bottom line is you may not think it, but people are Googling you. They're searching for information either about your work or about your credentials or what you've done in the past. Here's some interesting facts and figures around personal branding. This is taken from some studies done by pewinternet.org as well as CareerBuilder. 46% of internet users search online to find information about people from their past. This could be ex-boyfriends and girlfriends, childhood friends, teachers, people of that nature. 31% of those have searched for online information about coworkers, colleagues, competitors. This also may be people you went to school with. So those people that you're competing with or that you're working with are looking for information about you. 40% say that they have been contacted by someone from their past who found them online. And this one's interesting for me in that 34% of hiring managers reported they found content that caused them to dismiss a candidate from consideration. And a number that I didn't put in there is 75% of recruiters and hiring managers are going to Google as soon as they get your resume to figure out what they can find out about you. So for those of you in the workforce that are looking for jobs, that's something to keep in mind.
I think that's what I was touching on with the Facebook content as well.
Yeah, Facebook and LinkedIn and some of these bigger social networks, if you build a profile, they tend to rank very, very well on Google. And I'll get into Google just launched their own social network called Google+, which they allow you to build a profile. And those, of course, because it's Google, rank very, very well. So if you're looking to control and dominate your name or your identity on Google, those are definitely avenues you want to take. So what I recommend everybody to do if you've never done this is to Google yourself. Has anybody out there done that? Type their name into, good, it's a good start. Anybody find anything interesting that they care to share? Anything, any digital dirt, as we like to call it? No? Okay, what's your name? Yeah, some people are fortunate and unfortunate that they may share their name with millions of other people, and it just, so stuff that they may want to hide is not out there or not easily found. But that's also very difficult to get your website or your profile listed on the first few pages of Google. So here's what I recommend that all of you do if you haven't done this before is go to Google as well as go to Bing, which Bing is Microsoft's search engine. They also power Yahoo search, and then Google also powers AOL search. So between those two search engines, that covers like 98% of searches done online here in the United States. I would go through the first 3 to 5 pages, which is the first 30 to 50 results, just sort of scan it, get an idea of what's out there about you or about people that share your name. Do some different variations. So for example, if I type my name into Google and I type Tom Drugan, Google will pull back pages that may have a Tom Smith at the top of the page and then a Nancy Drugan at the bottom. So that may not be about me, but if you put quotes around that search, that's only going to bring back results that have your first and last name together on a particular search page. Variations, so you may have a nickname, you may have a maiden name. I have 3 first names between Thomas, Tom, and Tommy. So try to look for those different variations when you're Googling yourself. If you want to drill down even deeper, type some attributes along with your name. So maybe what school you went to, what towns you lived in or what cities, what companies you work for. This will really help get to the bottom of what's out there about you. If you want to go even deeper, you can go to like Twitter or YouTube and type in your name. There may be some videos out there about you don't realize. People may be talking about you on Twitter and you don't realize it, and those may not come up in Google, but there's a lot of eyeballs on those two platforms right now. And then Google actually has some vertical search engines, one for blog search and one for news search. If you go to Google, you'll see that on the navigation on the very top. So you may want to see if you've been in any news articles over the last few years, or if people in the blogosphere are talking about you or your work. I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but a few years ago I was doing a fairly similar seminar, and just by chance I Googled myself, went to the third page for Thomas Drugan, and I came across this article from the New York Times, which I hadn't seen before. And it says, "Killed by an angry husband, a fight that grew out of a drunken man insulting a woman." And if you look at if you go further, it says, "Thomas Drugan, a journeyman butcher, was in custody yesterday for having caused the death of Michael Murphy, a copyist." I was like, what is it? And there's maybe 2 or 3 other Tom Drugans that I know, at least here in the United States. So somebody just kind of glancing through my Google results may think, well, hey, maybe this guy's a murderer, or maybe he's a butcher and he's not actually an internet marketing guy. So if you actually click through the article, it shows right here in that white space that it's from June 29th, 1885. So what a lot of these newspapers and magazines have done have gone back and digitized all their old stuff and put it online. So you may have done something, a piece of work, or wrote an article in your school newspaper 20 years ago that may just now be coming out online. So you may have streaked the quad and got arrested in college, and that may just now appear. So it's a good idea to continually monitor what's out there about you. Okay, so anatomy of a personal brand. This is actually a new slide I'm trying, so if this is a bit cheesy, just come up to me afterwards and tell me to never present this again. The first thing I want to talk about is being authentic and being transparent. A lot of people that aren't on the internet all that much are very fearful of the information they put out there, and they should be. They need to be mindful. I tend to tell people, if you don't want your mother or your daughters or sons reading something, don't put it online. Don't put it on Facebook. Don't put it on a blog. But don't be afraid to be open too. You guys are artists. Your personalities and your opinions may count for people actually buying your work and being interested in your work. So don't be afraid to throw some opinions out there, or talk about news articles that you're reading about your particular industry. So in the spirit of transparency, actually, this is what I look like without skin and without clothes on. So that's actually me being transparent for you guys. So going through the anatomy here, your skills are what's in your noggin, what's in your brain. These are skills you developed over the years. In your case, it may be Photoshop, maybe charcoal. By the way, I was an art major for 2 years, but then I ended up in advertising, so I got a little bit of an art background. So things you developed over the years: Photoshop, painting, photography, what have you. Going down the line here, your voice or your mouth is essentially your status updates. So if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, that's your opinions on things, that's what's going on in your life. That's your voice, that people are actually interested in hearing about what's going on with you. Your face, your moneymakers, your photo. A lot of people put some really horrible photos up of themselves. They just take the first thing they have in their photo file and throw it up. Spend a little bit of time with this. I'm sure you guys all know photographers or have friends that have a really nice camera. Spend some time getting a nice photo together, and use that on your LinkedIn, your Facebook profile. Those images will also show up in Google image search, so it's good to have some good visual photos out there of you. Your heart is your vision and values. I recommend one of the things you guys do before you write a biography and post it online is spend a little time and write out what's your purpose, why are you here, what gets you excited, how do you want to change the world. Your hands and fingers are your links. So if you build a LinkedIn profile, for example, you have the ability to add links to other web properties that you control. Could be your portfolio, could be your resume, could be your individual online sites, could be your blog. So it's good to sort of have those links on all the web properties that you control so people can navigate to other things that they want to find out about you. This context here that's actually pointing to your behind, these are people that have your back. These are people that have your butts when it comes down to it. So on sites like LinkedIn or my site, you can actually have endorsements and references from people you're connected to. And you want to get obviously high profile people to say good things about your work or about who you are as a person. And that can help, open up a lot of opportunities on the internet. This little puddle down there, at least that's my interpretation of a puddle, that's your portfolio. That's your blood, sweat, and tears that you guys have put in over the years to build a portfolio up, and you put your heart and soul to a lot of your work. So don't be afraid to publish that online, and obviously that's why we're here to help promote that. And then your feed is your experience. It shows where you've traveled, where you've been. Some feet are more calloused than others, but it shows your unique journey to talk about where you got to where you're at today. Before you do a biography or put your personal brand online, I suggest doing personal discovery. Spend an hour or so and just with a pen and a pad of paper and talk about who are you, what are your values, what makes you unique versus other people in your space, what are you hoping to accomplish in your life or throughout your career, and what would your peers, what would your colleagues say about you as far as your either your work or who you are as a person. This is I'll give you guys a link afterwards. This will be online and this will be shared. So if you can't write everything down, don't worry too much about it. Okay, promoting brand you. The basics, which Aaron talked about, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter are the big three. That's where almost all of these social web eyeballs are on. So is anybody not on any of these three networks at this time? And that's fine. These are really, when you think about it, these are new technologies that just evolved over the last 5 years. And it seems like they've been around forever because they're so prominent now in our, in our daily lives. But, it's important that if you want to get your work out there, you want to sell yourself, to be at least on these three networks. They all have a bit of a different reason to be on it. Facebook is more about connecting with friends and family and people you know. LinkedIn's more about connecting with people in the workforce and colleagues you may have worked with in the past or have had acquaintances with, at networks like this. And then Twitter is more about celebrities and people wanting to be celebrities. It allows anybody to follow what you say, so this information is much more public. So if you are on Twitter, make sure that you're much more mindful of what you post out there because it can be seen by anybody. There's very little privacy around your Twitter posts. Yes, sir.
Hi, I work on Facebook.
Okay.
And, you might want to point out the difference between a Facebook profile and a Facebook page.
Yep, absolutely. Good point. So a few years ago, Facebook not only gave you the ability to build your own profile up, but they allowed you to build, at the time, what they called fan pages, which is you can build a page about your business, about an association you're part of, a club, and these are much more open pages that people can then join, they can interact with, they can post on those walls, they can add pictures. So it's a great way to interact with, maybe if you guys have fans or people that are interested in your work. You can then also invite your contacts to become part of those pages themselves. So there's some additional capabilities on those pages that you don't have on your personal profiles. And you can sort of separate your work, your business from your day-to-day lives. Thank you, by the way. The bottom here I have Google+, which is a new entrant in the social network space. Any of you on Google+ yet? Very nice. It just came out about 2 or 3 months ago. And it's essentially Google's play to compete directly with Facebook. It's a very well thought out, very clean, slick platform. They did a really good job. Its adoption rate has gone incredibly well. And so, it's still new. It's still the new shiny toy that everybody wants to play with, but there's a legit chance that they can actually take on Facebook and maybe be bigger than Facebook at some point. They have some additional privacy options, which made them attractive, but Facebook quickly tried to copy or did copy what Google did. So they're very similar in nature. What Google Plus has an advantage is that they are incorporating all of the other Google products that you may use on a daily basis. So Gmail, Picasa, Google Reader, Google News. So I'm in that kind of stuff every day. Google Docs, documents. It makes it really easy to sort of pull from those and share those other things with your network on Google Plus. So it's something to keep an eye on. The other thing, as I mentioned before, it's good to build a profile out on this because it ranks very well in Google for your name.
Do you have a way to get on it? I've not been able to.
So I think it's still in invite only. They call it beta. So you have to have somebody invite you to get in on it. I'm sure they're going to pull that soon so that it's open for everybody. If you know of somebody that's on Google Plus, just ask them to send you an invite. It's really easy to do it. Along the top, if they are in Google Plus, it says you have like 100 invitations to give out. They just need to click it and pick you. So just be patient. I'm sure Google does this with all their new products as they slowly roll it out to sort of build excitement and that exclusivity behind it, that you can't get in it and you want it.
Tom,
What about Branch Out? Facebook?
Yeah, so Branched Out, and they're a competitor of ours. So a company basically built a LinkedIn to be inserted into Facebook. So Facebook has something they call the Developers API, where you can build games and all sorts of tools within Facebook so that you can get in Facebook and never leave. Branched Out is a competitor of LinkedIn, where they're essentially allowing you to do all the things you can do on LinkedIn, but within Facebook. They've gotten some good traction. There's also Monster just launched a few months ago a competitor of theirs called drawing a blank. I'll remember it before the end of this presentation. But so that's new too. So you can actually do professional networking within Facebook. Okay, custom personal profiles is what I'm calling these. These are, so when you build a profile on LinkedIn or Facebook, you're really constricted or restricted to the fonts, the colors, the layout of those profiles. You guys as artists, you should have some creative license in how things look. And so a couple sites have popped up in the last couple years that allow you to do some really cool things with your profiles. One is called About.me. They're owned by AOL. It's basically was built by artists for artists. There's a lot of other people that use it, but so with this you can upload like a really nice background photo of yourself or of your work, and then you can change the location of your name, your biography, what links you have. You can change the fonts, you can change the colors, so it really gives you a lot of flexibility with how you present yourself on the web. Flavors.me is a direct competitor of About.me. They have very similar functionalities, but they have a few things that they do different. So if you're interested in something like this, I recommend checking out both, building a profile on both. It literally takes minutes to set up and seeing which one you're most comfortable with. Blogging's been around for a long time. I'm not going to go into what blogging is because I'm sure all of you read blogs and spend time on blogs. If you're looking to build a blog out, there's some really easy ways to do it. 5 years ago it was a little bit more difficult, but now there's a lot of tools available. One I would recommend is WordPress. They're the largest open source blogging platform out there. Literally millions of blogs you see online, such as Huffington Post was built on WordPress. WordPress is what we call a CMS, or content management solution, which means it makes it very easy for people like us who aren't necessarily web developers to do all sorts of neat things online, to publish content without having to know how to code things. WordPress has two platforms. One is WordPress.org, which is a little bit more for people that are web savvy, that know how to set up hosting and host websites themselves. If you're not that savvy, I recommend going to WordPress.com. It's a bit more limited, but WordPress will take care of all the hosting and things for you, so it's really easy to set up. WordPress is not just for blogging. There's a lot of small and mid-sized businesses that use WordPress to build out their websites. You guys do? Awesome. Yeah. So don't feel like you need to blog using WordPress. You can build static websites. The neat thing about WordPress is they have literally thousands of what we call plugins. So if you want a calendar on your site, or a web form, or your Twitter feed, all you have to do is basically plug and play. They have these applications you just pop in your blog and it's done. So it offers a lot of customization features. And the thing that I like the most about it is there's literally tens of thousands of designs out there. So there's all sorts of different design templates. Most are free. There's a lot of companies that will charge for it, anywhere from $25 to $100. But there's some really nice, clean designs out there. The fastest growing blogging platform right now is called Tumblr. Any of you guys on that? Yeah, it's really slick. It's very simple. It's definitely geared towards creatives and artists, so I recommend checking that out. Posterous is a newer one that has very similar functionality to Tumblr, so that's just another alternative.
Excuse me one second. There's a cover story in PDN, Photographer District News, this month about why photographers love Tumblr.
Huh?
I just saw it on the cover. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
So
it's really
clearly
geared towards getting,
yeah.
I mean, you see these big photos. It's really geared towards getting, artwork or photos or what have you in front of people, and then, it's sort of giving less pertinence to the actual content or the copy that goes along with it. So, and they have some neat features that are built around, high-res images. And it's very simple.
So how, if I have a web page on WordPress, how can I combine, just post in one place and have it in all different, this, Tumblr and all these.
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools, and I'll get to some of these at the end, that allow you to post to all of these platforms at the same time. Hello Text, which is HELLOTXT.com. I don't have that in here, but it's a way that essentially you can sync up. They have like hundreds of networks, and if you want to post like a status update to all those, you can do it. I think they have images too for a lot of those networks, so it saves a lot of time instead of going to your website, to Tumblr, to WordPress, to all that. And I'll get to some more solutions that are built around that in a few slides here. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because you guys probably know more than I do, but images and photo sharing, Picasa and Flickr are the two big guys in this space. There's hundreds of other alternatives. Picasa is owned by Google, and Flickr is owned by Yahoo. Picasa, from what I understand, is actually going to be, that brand's going to go, and they're going to basically pull that into the Google Plus brand. Just a little tidbit, but great simple applications to allow you to upload and present your photography, pictures of your artwork, what have you. Video, YouTube's obviously what everybody goes to first for video. So a suggestion is, if you guys aren't videographers, is to do a slideshow of all your artwork and put it up on YouTube. If you want some other customization, there's a website called Vimeo. It's Vimeo, which is a little bit more professional. It doesn't have the branding. It offers you some more customization as far as having like high def videos, and it's really slick, and that's what we use. So if you want, it's actually, you got to pay for it, so it's not free like YouTube, but it has a lot of other bells and whistles that YouTube doesn't offer. Oh, you would know.
All those other things, those other pages you listed, you can put video on those too. Tumblr.
Absolutely, very true. Yep. Portfolio communities, I actually had to go to my web designer. We use an agency here in Chicago to get some ideas here because I don't have a portfolio. It's not my world, but these are some recommendations that he gave, or that they gave, along with some other sources I found online. So these are built for artists like you. They're not just tools to allow you to publish your artwork, but they're also communities. So it's a great way to meet other artists that may have similar backgrounds as you, or are into similar things. You can get feedback on your work, you can get ideas. So the big three that at least I understand, you guys may know more, but Behance.net, Dribble with 3 Bs, which I think is a crazy domain name, and then Cargo Collective, which my designer couldn't stop talking about. That's where he goes to. So I have some other ones up here that aren't as highly trafficked or aren't highly used, but they may have certain tools or bells and whistles that may fit your needs. So.
One other one, which is a really great way for some of you that don't have websites to easily, quickly build one, is Other People's Pixels. It's designed for artists, built by artists. I think it's like $200 a year. And it's set up already for artists, so it involves very little back-end work on your part.
And CAC members get a 10% discount on Other People's Pixels starting in October.
Other People's Pixels. Oh, sorry. There's starting in October, CAC members get a 10% discount.
Any of you web developers here? Designers, I should say. Sorry. Sortfolio is one that it's a place where I found my web design team. It's created by 37 Signals, which is a local Chicago startup, very well known, at least in my circle. So it's a great way for web designers just to put up their work and get a lot of people like me who are looking for designers.
There's another site that's populated by a lot of amateur and non-artists too, but what I found is that on DeviantArt, most professionals have stuff on there just because it's so big, and they got a lot of traffic that way.
Okay, measuring your social influence. So any of you heard of Clout or are on Clout? Sort of a hot new thing. If not, you probably will hear about it in the coming years. What they do is you essentially sync up your Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn accounts, and they will monitor your activity and figure out how influential you are on the web. So they will look at things like not only how often you post on a site like Twitter, but how often is it, how likely is it to be retweeted, and who is retweeting that. And then on LinkedIn, or I'm sorry, on Facebook, how often are your comments or your posts commented on, or how often are they liked? And you'll see those little icons you'll see everywhere now, the little like button, tweet button, over here, and then +1 is Google. So they're measuring all this and then figuring out how influential are you in your particular industry or your particular city. And then what they do is they team up with large companies like a Starbucks and say, Starbucks comes to them and says, I want to have access to the most influential people that like coffee. And so they will give them, a free Starbucks coffee of their newest flavor. So it's a way for advertisers and companies to get matched up with people that have a big voice on the social web. So if you're very active on Twitter, I recommend checking out Clout. Peer Index is another company that does very similar things. Okay, monitoring your reputation. I mentioned that things can still crop up that may have happened 20, 30 years ago. The easiest way to do this is through Google Alerts. If you can't find it, just type in Google Alerts in Google, it'll bring you to it. Basically, you put in search terms like your name, your company name, competitors, what have you, then Google will email you when they find new mentions of those particular search terms. At the very least, do it for your own name, assuming you don't have like a John Smith name or something like that.
In quotations.
In quotations.
In quotations, yeah. We did it with the gallery, and there was a lot of press we found that we didn't even know we had gotten, reviewers who didn't send us a copy or thing. So it's a very cool thing.
I personally use Google Reader. So if you do searches on like Google Blog Search, Twitter, Google News, at the bottom you'll see that they'll provide an RSS feed for that search query. I can then take that RSS feed, put it into Google Reader, and it gives me real-time results. So it's Google Alerts will send it out like once a day, but for me, if somebody's like speaking highly or poorly about my company, I want to get out there right away and talk to those people. So it's almost like a real live newspaper where I can get access not only on my competitors, but what people are saying about me or my company on Twitter and other sources. If you want to go above and beyond, there's a company called Tracker, which is mostly for small businesses, but they do a much deeper dive into, they monitor Facebook and LinkedIn and basically everything out there. But I think it's a pay-for service. I think at minimum it's $10 a month to sign up for that. As you mentioned earlier, there's now tools that are popping up to help you manage all this stuff. So you can manage, you can post to all of your accounts in one place. You can measure your activity and who's talking about you and how often your name comes up across these social networks. The one I recommend is Sprout Social. They're actually a local Chicago company. They've only been around for about a year, but they got some really cool applications with managing your personal brand or your business brand across the social landscape. A competitor of theirs is Hootsuite that's actually been around a little bit longer, but I prefer Sprout Social. Okay, real quick, I got like a minute left here. Search engine optimization, which us in the industry call SEO, that's basically depending on how you look at it, the art or science of getting ranked well in Google and other search engines for whatever you want to come up for. So whether it be Chicago artist or, Logan Square painter, something along those lines. Some quick tips: buy a domain name. Go to GoDaddy and buy your first and last name .com or .net, whatever. Google loves that. They'll give a high precedence and rank sites well that actually have your name in it. So when people search for you, assuming you're a Joe Smith, it'll come up very high in the search results. Build lots of profiles and web pages. Don't be afraid to get out, not only on the networks I talked about, but there's literally hundreds of second tier and third tier social networks like our site. And the more stuff you have out there, the more reach you have, the more likely people are going to find you. From an SEO purpose, strategically link those sites together. So you got the currency of Google is they look at not only the content on a web page, but how many other sites are linking to that web page. And then they also go beyond that and look at how many websites are linking to those pages. So a link from the homepage of New York Times is going to be, NewYorkTimes.com, is going to be much more important than Bob's blog that some guy down the street who does it out of his basement. So if you can link all your profiles and web presences together, that's really important for Google. It helps them find all those pages, and it makes Google think that those pages are important. You want to fill those web pages and profiles with what I call rich, unique content. Don't just take one biography and paste it all over the place. Try to switch it up a little bit. Have a different voice on some different networks. Google doesn't want to post a bunch of the content that's exactly the same, so they're looking for unique content from you. When you build biographies out or profiles about yourself and you use your name, don't write, Joe Smith, Joe Smith, Joe Smith, Joe Smith. Google's going to view that as spammy. So the rule of thumb is to not have your name be more than 5 to 8% of the words that are on a particular page, or whatever keyword you're trying to show up for. whether it be, like Chicago artist. Last but not least, you can pay your way into the game, which is going to Google AdWords and buying something called a sponsored result. It's pretty easy to set up. It takes 5 minutes. The thing is you get charged every time somebody clicks on a sponsored result. And those sponsored results typically appear at the top of a Google page, and they're colored or along the right-hand side. And you can pay anywhere from, a couple cents a click to, it can be up to like $50 to $100 a click. But you set that, depending on what word you're bidding on. If it's just your name, it shouldn't be competitive at all. So it should be really easy to get it up and, pay maybe 5 cents a click for that. If you have a very common name, I don't suggest doing it.
Or Chicago artist.
Or,
would
yeah.
Probably,
You-
if Chicago artist, you'd probably be paying quite a bit
Yeah.
for.
So this is what I used to do at Orbitz, and we would pay for words like Google or Chicago hotel, travel to Hawaii. Those words we literally spend, $10,000, $20,000 a month on just for those keywords. And that's it. I'm done. So I guess,
Questions?
yeah, questions for
He's gonna have more than we
the Facebook. I didn't understand what.
Ads.
Ads. Okay, very similar to, so Facebook rolled out their own ad platform, which is very similar to AdWords. And so basically it gets a little bit more granular that you don't just bid on keywords, you actually bid on demographics. So if you want to reach people like over a certain age, in a certain area, that have certain likes, that you may be interested in certain artists, you can then show up on the right, what we call the right rail next to the Facebook wall for those particular people. I haven't had much success on it. I've tried it in the past, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's working for a lot of people. Facebook is now the #1 most trafficked website in the world. It just surpassed Google, I think, within the last few months. So there's a lot of eyeballs there. So I recommend testing it, but what I recommend is tracking it. So if you need to understand what your purpose is, so if you're looking to get contacts or leads, make sure you're tracking that. Know that I paid $100 on Facebook, but I got, $500 in purchases, or I got 15 leads of people that contacted me. Make sure you're measuring all that. Otherwise, you're just sort of flying blind in those types of campaigns.
I have kind of an issue if I were to like Google my name or whatever and look under images, because being, artists, images is more important. I always get like the worst things from my Facebook page or my fan page, as well as other more obsolete sites that, I've had 5 years ago that I've actually closed those accounts. How, is there any way to get the Google images that you want there to be higher on the list versus other ones, in the same way that you would have it under a traditional Google search, you can get those results up?
So two issues. One is when Google finds an image or any content, they do something called cache, which means they hold on to it. So you can remove a web page, but that information's still out there, including images. So that's why you're finding images that you got rid of a long time ago. They do have a form, so if you just Google remove Google cache, they have a form where you can submit stuff that may or may not get removed. I mean, you can request it, but it's Google. They got big problems, and they normally, I've had minimal luck with that. Things that you can do to get the work you want.
Yeah, let's say the ones that I actually am okay with having, but, a good painting is down here, but I have like pictures of my face up here.
Yeah. So what they're looking at mostly is something called an image alt tag. So when you actually put up an image and a little bit of HTML, you can do something called image alt equals, and then put your name in there. So that's telling Google that's what this image is about. You can also do like a caption around that image. So the closer your name is to that image, the more important it's going to be. If you just optimize the content on those pages and put your name on it, it should tell Google that, okay, this image is more about my name as opposed to, these old ones that I want to get rid of. So it's tough. There's not much you can do on Google image search. We get a lot of our members always asking questions about that, but, it is what it is, unfortunately. Yes.
Oh, good. I have one question with 2 parts. I've had 2 people help me with websites because I'm really, it's hard for me to take the picture of my painting. It's, when it's gloss, shiny and stuff. And then, you submit to certain galleries and you get rejected. How do you cheaply get somebody to maintain do you each maintain your own websites so that they're current with your new and better work? And when you resubmit to a gallery, you're not putting the same old you up? I mean, how do you cheaply?
My
I've had
recommendation
people-
is don't, the tools are so advanced now, you don't need other people to build websites for you. I would use WordPress. There's a lot of, Google has a product called Site Builder, which makes it very easy to build websites where it may take you a couple hours to get familiar with it, but you know, I had my mom built a WordPress site a couple months ago. She's not savvy
My
at all.
daughter did mine, then she didn't know.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a bit of a learning curve, but now the tools are so advanced, you don't need to know how to code. You don't need to know how to do hosting. All those tools are available for you. And it's,
And site
Google Site Builder is what it's called. And you can buy a domain name, you can pick all sorts of designs, yeah. So that's probably the easiest way to go about it. I recommend doing WordPress.com and not .org because it's easier. It's just easier. Well, those are two different options.
So I have two different sites.
You can. My recommendation would be to go with WordPress if you're just going to do one. And there's all sorts of communities out there that will help you. You know, if you have questions, you can just go to the help, and you know, there's communities that will give you advice and stuff.
But the thing, if she goes to like a WordPress, you're not going to transfer your current domain. That's a different issue. Like you'll still have. Well, WordPress will have your own domain. I mean, it'll be WordPress something something.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be your
No,
current
you
website.
can do that, but you got to pay for it. So they have the ability for, I think it's maybe $7 to $10 a month, where you can have a custom domain. So they either buy it for you, which means you got to get a whole new domain name, or if you're somewhat, do you know where your domain name is hosted or who you bought it through? Yeah, real easy. So you can tell GoDaddy, just go into your GoDaddy account, and you basically say, I no longer want it pointed to this IP address. It's called an IP address. I want it pointed to the IP address of my WordPress site. It's a little bit technical, but there's enough information out there where it shouldn't be too bad. And GoDaddy, for being a big company, is actually pretty good with customer service. So, yes, sir.
Grant, this is more of a specific question. After graduating school, obviously my Facebook was used for other purposes, but you know, besides just private, you know, putting all the private settings on, you know, one thing that I'm thinking about, is there any guidelines from transitioning to using Facebook as a social site, you know, where you're purely social, to switching to professional? Is a page like a better thing?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely separate those two out. I mean, there's privacy options now with Facebook where you can categorize your high school friends versus your colleagues versus people that you maybe do business with. It becomes a little tedious to go through all your contacts and sort those people out. And there's different circumstances where you may want this person to see something. And you can make mistakes too. You know, you could forget about that. I'm posting this to everybody and talk about how, you know, drunk you got last Friday night or whatever. You obviously don't want to do that. I recommend separating it completely and doing one of those pages. It's really easy to do, and you know, just separate it out is my recommendation.
I guess the last question is, I mean, can you create an entirely different Facebook with just like a different email? Is that advisable, or is that?
You can, but if you use a business name, so you would use your personal name for that?
Yeah, I mean, but since it's a artist name, you know what I mean?
Okay. If Facebook, they do have editors that will go through profiles, and if they think it's for a business, they'll shut it down. So just be careful if you do that. Unless it's like a ghost name or something. Then.
One option might be to use Google Plus then for that. I mean, you want to watch it because it's brand new and no one really knows what's going to happen with it, but if it does continue with the inertia it has and it responds so well to Google searches, that might be an option.
Yep, absolutely.
To do that.